Hello, welcome to another edition of That Millwall Podcast. For the regular viewers, this might throw you because the man to my that way is one of the co-creators, the co-founder, the chief, shall we say, of the podcast. However, back back when a couple of the guys did Who Are You interviews, but unfortunately Omar never got round to doing his. So today we're bringing you Who Are You with one half of the dynamic duo. Omar, how are you?
I'm all right, Stephen. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very well, very well. As I say, very weird for me because I'm interviewing someone which we wouldn't really be here without you. So it's a bit of a strange situation. But I'm sure the listeners are dead keen to get to know you and hear about your Millwall story.
I think it's a bit of
Obviously,
reluctance on my part with that one. It's like, I'm like, do people really want to know? But I thought it'd be good laughs to do it anyway. So I'm keen for this and look forward to it, mate.
absolutely, and I'm sure when the numbers go through the roof, then you'll see how popular you are and how you outshine the other half of the dynamic duo. But Omar, take it away. Tell us firstly a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I don't know how deep to go this one, but I'm the south side of 30 just. I'm a Millwall supporter, as we all are. An IT engineer by trades, and been a Millwall fan since what 2003, which I know we'll come on to in a bit. But
Mhm.
well, early 2000s. My first shirt was 2000, but been going to games since 2003. But I'm sure you asked me that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, as interesting as they come, right? So there you go.
Absolutely, and obviously 2003. I'm trying to think who would have been in that team. But why Millwall? Why what brought you to the Den?
My old man was a Millwall fan in the 80s and 90s. I'm actually part Turkish Cypriot. My dad's part of the Turkish contingent of Millwall fans in the 80s and 90s, should I say. And they've still a few of them knocking about nowadays. Obviously, my dad as well used to work at the CAF across the road, Millwall CAF. And
Mhm.
it's obviously kind of convenient at the time, obviously being quite handy in a match day, let's say the least. But yeah, I mean, obviously he took me to my first game and stuck it ever since, really.
And talking about your first game, do you remember who it was against?
I did check it out to make sure because I didn't know if I imagined it, but I think it was in 2003 January, and we beat Watford 4-0. There you go. So that's not a
Ah,
bad
it's a good
first game to
start.
come back to, right?
One of the questions and one of the things with when I've done these interviews previously, and obviously you'd have seen that when people say that they lost the first game that they went to, you kind of think that's not
Yeah.
the kind of style. A 4-0 win, you must have thought you were the best team in the league.
I think, yeah. I mean, at the time, obviously, to be fair, I come from a family which I'll be fully open. I come from a family where some are Chelsea, some are Millwall. And when you're young and you're kids, my dad obviously working a lot of Saturdays and stuff. I didn't always get to go to the Millwall games, but kind of got to an age when I went to the first football game was at Millwall, and then I have family that are Chelsea fans too, so I've been to a few Chelsea games, and then it got to the age probably about 8 or 9 years old where it's like, right, are you gonna be a Chelsea fan or a Millwall fan? I'm being full transparent, full open here into the podcast world, and I'll take all the stick I get for it. But I chose the right club in my eyes, chose Millwall, and the rest is history, really.
Absolutely. And I mean, in terms of the ground, obviously, it annoys me when people call it the new Den. It's not
Mm.
new anymore because we've been there for quite a while. Obviously, we're similar age, so obviously didn't get to go to the old Den. But what was your first impression of the ground? I'm assuming as a kid, it's a football stadium. You kind of your eyes widened.
Yeah. I do remember, like, it was that kind of like the eye widening is probably a good one actually, because when you would go to like you used to watch it on TV, I was always playing football as a kid and stuff, and like going to my first game, I actually distinctly remember it kind of coming out and seeing the pitch and like kind of being in the stands. I actually still remember that moment now. It's just it's a euphoric moment. I think it's like you kind of like, oh my god, this is for me. This and like even as a kid, like
Mm.
just a buzz for it really, and obviously enjoying going to the games and stuff. And you take it from there. And I don't suppose you lose that buzz really. I think that the only time I really get back at the Den is like probably the first game back at the Den in a new season and stuff. You like miss this
Mm.
place. It's been a few months, but I do remember that feeling where just walking in, coming down the steps, I'm like, wow, this is nice. This and yeah, the rest is history, mate.
And I mean, I know where you sit, but our listeners obviously don't. In your first game, did you sit in the same place that you are now? Have you moved about, or?
My first actual game, I sat East Lower, towards the away end. Well, the Dockers stand, but I still call it East and West stands and North stand and
Yeah,
Cold
yeah,
Away end. But that was my first game, and then after that, I actually sat. from where I am now, which is Cardboard Lane Lower, block 37 to be precise. If you want to come and find me one at match day, hopefully only for all positive reasons. But yeah, block 37, Cardboard Lane. I've always sat in the same block aside from that first game. Obviously, when the stands shut for cup games and stuff, I've got to sit elsewhere. But yeah, from 2003 onwards, it's pretty much been that seat. I've kind of moved further up the stairs as I go through the seasons. So I'm towards the back now. I don't think I'll ever leave it, despite obviously not being the greatest of views sitting down there. But yeah, it's home, as they say.
It's one of those, isn't it? With you see, once you find
Mm.
one or a block, for example, you just can't leave it. Like, as you say, with a cup, you're forced to go
Hmm.
elsewhere. I'm never usually a fan of that personally.
Same.
As I say, your seat is home. In terms of now moving away from the ground to players,
Hmm.
um, just thinking about, so from 2002, I'm gonna, I think I know the answer to some of these questions, but we'll see. Your favourite all-time player in a Millwall shirt?
It's yeah, I could go for that kind of era. I think for me, there's obviously a few different players that could spring to mind, but my favourite all-time Mill player, I've got a couple really. And the reason why it's two is I can't decide between the pair of them, but it's one is David Forde and one's Jimmy Abdou. Um, Purely because I've seen their whole career obviously for Millwall, but Neil
Mm,
Harris is obviously a legend. Like Neil Harris is the pinnacle, but obviously following the club from that era onwards, I missed the best years of Neil Harris. Really scoring the goals for fun that he did.
mm,
Obviously, he had his illness, and like I think for him to come back and do what he did and become the all-time leading goal scorer, it goes down in that. But I've obviously been Cobble Lane Lower. You kind of get that relationship with the goalkeeper in a weird way. I can only describe it if you sit there. Like they come over obviously every game to clap you, in the warm-ups and stuff. And when you're younger, you're there early and stuff. David Ford for me is like the pinnacle of I think like it's purely the best goalkeeper I've seen playing for Millwall. Obviously, we had Tony Warner and stuff early doors when I was
mhm.
going, but David Ford for me is just like also the epitome of hard work. Like he signed for us in League One, transitioned to the Championship with us, went on to play for Ireland and become Ireland's number one. Um, and there was nothing pretty or fancy about David Ford, but it was a pure Millwall character and one of the
Yeah.
governors, as they say. And you can he worked his way into that position and kept it for so many years. And I think that's a really underrated thing of him nowadays.
And you mentioned Jimmy Abdou. I think most supporters of a certain area will always have a soft spot for Jimmy. Probably a silly question, but it's another one that epitomizes what it meant to play for Millwall, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think similar to Ford, David Ford is not a fancy modern day goalkeeper. He was a shot stopper. He was good at what he'd done. And the same with Jimmy Abdou. He didn't have to glorify his position. He knew exactly what he was capable of. And I think as Mill fans, we take to players like that, don't we? And I think Jimmy Abdou, his job was simple: win the ball, pass it to Trotter a lot of the time, and that was all Jimmy Abdou did. But there was games where I think QPR away when he had man marked to Raps, I remember,
Hmm.
and the same with Makandawiri when he played that position as well. These players like they do the simple things good, and that's a quality that's often underrated, I think, nowadays in football.
Absolutely. And in terms of a manager, I mean, you're probably blessed that whilst you've seen some bad times, you've obviously seen some very, very good ones.
Yeah.
Favorite manager?
Yeah, it's a toss up between obviously longevity wise, it's either Jackett or Harris, but it's got to be Kenny Jackett for me. Obviously Dennis Wise, FA Cup era. As being a young kid, it's quite nostalgic looking back at that. You can, I can still remember all the games for the cup run. Obviously, them sort of things obviously live long in the memory of a young child at the time. But
Mm.
I think to appreciate what we've done as a club, I think Kenny Jackett for me, probably my best years. Neil Harris as well has given us really good years in recent times, but I think Kenny Jackett just edged that for me.
And keeping with players, but I'm going to go down a different route now in the worst players. So, firstly, the worst player you've seen in a Millwall shirt.
Cool. I, it's a that's a tough question, because there has been some clangers for Millwall. The first one that springs to mind, though, when I see that question, I think of Richard Duffy. Remember the centre half, Richard Duffy,
Yeah.
the
Oh
Welsh centre
God.
half, and Jackett
He
signed him
was.
when we was in League One, and he was so pony. Like, I
Mm,
mean, there was an era when I first started going where the fans used to always get on the back of Mark Phillips and Kevin Braniff because they both came through similar times. And that was quite. I think there's a time, obviously, the club started to do a bit worse. Mark Phillips got a lot of stick, but for me, I remember Richard Duffy. I think 2008, 2009 times, and I think he went on to have a decent career, to be fair. But he just couldn't do it for us at then. And then you
no.
think of strikers that we've signed. I remember we signed obviously Renigi, for example, in more recent times and stuff like that, or Meyerhofer. I know the Hoff's got some nostalgia, I think even in your mind a little bit for
Mhm.
a couple of games, but yeah, there's been some real up and downs. But Richard Duffy's the first player that comes to head, so sorry, Richard Duffy.
If you're watching, we do apologise. And not that Richard Duffy would probably watch a Millwall pod, but
I
you never
don't
know.
believe so. You never know.
You never know. You never know. And I mean, it's really difficult this next one because I always, as you know a lot about your football and opposition teams, and you're looking at players, but you always look at the good players that tend to be
Mhm.
against us rather than the bad ones. But worst player you've seen play against Millwall?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Who first comes to head there? Worst player to play against Millwall. Cool. I know this is not a great. I've tried. I should have probably prepped for this one, to be honest. I've seen the questions prior, but I was trying to go on the cuff here. But I'm gonna go for the worst player to play against Millwall. I'm just going to throw a curveball in there and go for someone like Lee Hughes, just because he's got a lot of negative connotations against Millwall. I'm going to go Lee Hughes. There you go, the Oldham striker, because he always seems to score
Yeah.
against us, which is defeating the purpose of the question. But it's quite a difficult one to quantify an answer there. He was quite a villain, and I seem to remember,
He
like,
was a villain.
yeah, he was a bit of a villain for us, I think. And I'm going to go Lee Hughes. There you go.
And he also, the thing with Lee Hughes as well was that celebration he had. He did
Yes, where he's going up and
the
down
kind
and
of,
like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was really frustrating, and it's
Yes.
fair enough, fair enough. And
It's a bit of different
as
connotation with that one, but yeah, I think I just feel like thinking of you like you say, you're thinking of standout players, but there's definitely a lot of worse players that play against us. But I'll go for that one.
as Omar just said, obviously we obviously look at the questions and the guys
Mhm.
know who do this, what's coming. However, I've got a question for you that's a little bit of a curveball, and this is the real one that he's not seen. That it just come to me before we went live, and I thought I'll ask him. I touched on and said that you know your football.
Mhm.
If there was one player over the years of following Millwall, and not like Messi, Ronaldo, an obvious answer, that you wish you could have seen the club sign, who would it be and why?
Oh, this is a real curveball. One player that I've always liked, that I wish we signed. Do you know? I'm thinking like 2010 eras, like the 2010s kind of era. Um, I'm stuck between a couple actually. This is a real curveball, Steve. I like this
You
one.
can have a you can have an honourable mention if you want, if you need to.
Right. I'm gonna go. Do you know who I always appreciated in the championship, playing them a lot and stuff like that? I always liked Albert Adoma, and I think he would have really
Oh, it's
fit in at a
unreal.
certain point for Millwall, right? Because he's a proper winger, and you know
Mm,
what I'm like about Millwall wingers and strikers. I really liked Albert Adoma a lot. I thought, like, for a championship standard, he kept doing it for so many years, and I think he's still going till recent, really. And
hmm
I look at someone like that. Also, Joby McAnuff was another one that rings a bell. I know he's ex-Palace, I think, at one point, but like they're the kind of players that always stuck out to me when we played against them. That I always thought, "Oh, we're gonna have a tough game today." But Albert Adoma is like a seasoned Championship pro that I always thought good player that I would love to have seen play for us at one point or another. And the other one that I was going to say, who's actually like there's three players I was thinking about there was Peter Whittingham for Nottingham Forest. Proper midfielder,
mm,
always had a set
mm.
piece goal in him, and always seemed to cause us trouble. But you know, I've kind of gone like more on watching Millwall play, like you say, not to go to. You could go for the big boys in the Premier League and stuff, but they're three players that I've always, when we played against their clubs, when they were at Cardiff, for example, Whittingham, Adoma, with all the various clubs who play for the Championship, well, I thought I'd love to have them play for us. And yeah, there's my three.
I tell you what, on Albert Adoma, that is probably the best answer you could have given, because he is one that I remember.
Mm,
There was a Tuesday night game we played against Reading, and I went on my own, and he absolutely ruined Scott Barron.
hmm
He was unplayable that night, Albert Adoma. And I come out the ground, phoned my dad, and said, "Do you know what? He's one of the best players I've ever seen." And it was Adoma, and then I think he
Yeah,
still plays now. I actually still think he is in the Championship, but
there was a club last year. I think maybe QPR. He might have been at maybe. I
yeah.
think it was QPR. But yeah, top winger. I want to say I would love to see him play for Millwall. I think.
Absolutely, that was a really good answer. But
I'm glad you like it.
I'm pleased that it was a curveball question, but you've come out with three cracking answers there. Going on to games now and moments and things like that. What would you say is probably your most memorable game following Millwall? It doesn't have to be a win.
Hmm.
It can be an event, a moment. But what would you say the most memorable game for you is?
Yeah, see, the thing is though, when you think memorable, it is normally like I think I know there's a question coming later for best away days and stuff. So I'm trying to avoid going down that route. But like when you think memorable, you think of them sort of games. Um, I'll throw one in now and I'll save the other one for later, I think, to be honest. But the most memorable for me is a Bury away because when we won 3-2 with O'Brien scoring at the last minute, just that pure relation, that scene at the end, and obviously when the goal came and how it happened, being 2-0 down, turning it around to 3-2. The pitch was like half frozen, like them sort of things stick in the
Hmm.
memory and stuff like that, where it was literally the left byline the whole way up the pitch was looked like it should have been called off, to be honest. And it was cold. You go to grim northern Manchester town and you get the win. I think that's the thing you love most about them away days when you win in them sort of places, really.
Absolutely. I mean, on a similar question, I guess, and this is more maybe a specific to an actual moment. So the best moment following Millwall.
Ooh, probably Steve Morrison's goal at Wembley, and again recent memory and recent biasy, but like just that sheer elation when he scored it quite late in the game at and Wembley at the playoffs. Obviously, saw us lose the year before. I think that was like a big moment in the game where like you're thinking if we're going to extra time, I don't think my heart would have been able to take it, to be honest, at the time.
No,
And like you're
no.
thinking, what's going to happen here? And then Morrison pops up with the winner, like in the 86th minute. It's just yeah. I think to me that's probably one of my best moments, really, for Mill, I think.
Do you think that that moment was made more special for again a younger generation because Neil Harris was manager?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think if you could even take that moment and spin it and go, Neil Harris lifting the trophy at Wembley as a manager, like I could
Mm,
picture that moment. I remember like waiting to cheer that, like because you always go through the players and cheer. Normally, you get the big cheer when they lift the trophy at first, with the captain lifting the
mm.
trophy and stuff like that. And you go through the rest of the players. And you get to the squad players, the fringe players, the youth players, are like hey, hey, and then you're waiting for Neil to lift the trophy, and then he gives it some one-handed, like giving the trophy, like them sort of moments, yeah, 100%. Like Neil Harris winning the trophy, winning the playoffs, and winning the promotion for us. It was pure. It was special because he came back and he's done it again now, obviously in recent times. But he's put his reputation on the line, whether it's as a player or manager. His reputation is on the line when he comes back to the club, and yeah, he did it and conquered really.
Absolutely. And this is a difficult question because this tends to be more things that go on outside of the ground or away from football. And as most of our listeners will know, and myself included, you are a connoisseur of the away day. Um, you do love an away trip, especially up north. What would you say is your funniest moment while following the club? Now, it can be during a game, but I would imagine
Mhm.
you've probably got some stories in your locker of
I don't know if any of them
outside of
are.
the.
I don't know if any of them are worthy to share. Some of the ones that I can go down routes with there. Um, funniest moment following Millwall. Oh, yeah. There's definitely a few that you can be mentioned. That's probably not safe for this show. I'm gonna go for funniest moment. Do you know what? What I found quite funny, even though it was terrible at the time, was going to Oldham away and getting the game called off due to waterlogged pitch. The reason why it was funny was because we've travelled all that way. And so basically, it was Oldham away under Harris, maybe the first or second season in the champion in League One. I'm going to say second. I think it might have been the second season. Game gets called off prior to Christmas. We've got all the way to Oldham. We get off the train. It's pissing down with rain, and we're fucking walking through the rain to go to the ground. We're like, "Fuck me, we best turn up and win today." We get to the ground, and the last thing we expected was the game to be called off. And then a little nugget for it afterwards, we managed to blag our way into the grounds because we're like we've come all this way. We just want to we want to like see the pitch. I was like, I think my mate said, and we got managed to get on the pitch, and then my mate runs on the pitch and goes, "Yeah, it's definitely waterlogged, lads." And I think the game's off today. But they were quite good to us. Really, they gave us programs. I'm like, I've got a program of the game that didn't happen. That's probably something worthwhile to keep, isn't it? As
Yeah,
a token of Oldham away. And then they gave us a pie and a beer as well. I was like, oh, thank you for that. And then we had to walk with Mario back in the rain again. But yeah, like stuff like that where like you're with your mates having a good time on an away day. I've got really PG there, but yeah, Oldham away when the game's called off. That was quite a funny
there's
moment.
the next question, and we'll come on to it, but we will be recording Omar after dark. So the stories that come out that can't go out on this show we'll be doing it. We'll be doing it on a separate one. But obviously, in terms of obviously following Millwall,
Mhm.
what would you say is your best story? What's the one thing that you go back to maybe in 10, 20 years time, you'll be telling your kids or later on down the line, grandkids or whatever? What would you say is the best story?
Do you know what? I've got a good story. It was under Ian Holloway towards the end of his tenure as manager. Obviously, we all wanted him out by this point. Um, and we had Middlesbrough away on a Tuesday night, and I decided to get the coach up. Coach one Barmy Army up to Middlesbrough away. We get battered. It's either 3 or 4-0. Bamford scored a couple goals for them. It's when he was scoring goals for fun for Middlesbrough. We lose, and I think he goes after the Norwich game on the weekend leading up to that. And then we get back to the den 4 in the morning, Tuesday or Wednesday morning at this point, and like we're just leaving the ground, and like we're like, fucking, this is shit. I think we're waiting for a cab or something to get us back. And then the players' coach turns up, and we're like, some of the boys that are there, like, fuck it, let's abuse them because obviously we just lost 4-0 and they're pissed off, whatever. And then we get off, and then they all get off the coach, and Jos Hoyveld's there. And I think one of the lads joked, going, "Give us a lift back to Bromley because that's where I live." And he goes, "All right, then get in." So then we're in. We're at 4 in the morning on Wednesday morning outside the den. We get a lift home from Jos Hoyveld, which of all people, who does go down as also one of my favourite players for purely that reason. And obviously, I'm only 18, 19 at the time, and we're in his car, and he spent the whole half-hour journey just literally talking about Holloway and how he wanted things to work. But like it was just like, it was the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to me. Where I'm in his car, like, why? How have I landed up here? Like, it's like, it's bizarre. But it was good value at the time, and yeah, weird day. Could lose 3 or 4-0, spend what 12 hours on a coach in all round trip, and at the end of it, I mean, your 12 hours car get dropped off at the front door. So yeah, interesting one.
I bet you'll struggle to find many people that we speak to that A, have had a lift home from a current Millwall player after an away game, and two, I would probably say nowadays that sort of thing just wouldn't happen. The players
No,
just wouldn't
never.
risk that
Yeah,
kind of heat. So that is pretty impressive, and I guess as well that I mean he wasn't bad either, was he? Really, let's face it, he wasn't
no.
that bad. So
He
it could
scored a
have been
goal
worse.
against
You could have,
Charlton as well when we won 2-1, so
yeah.
it goes down in my books for that one as well. But yeah, he was good. He was a nice guy as well. He gave me his shirt at the end of the season as well, and remembered giving me the lift as well. So it was just like stuff like that, little nuggets of it was a cool story at the time, obviously, and it's still something I probably would talk about now and tell people about. So yeah, there you go.
Absolutely. There we go. Before we move on to the next question, I'm gonna not curveball because it's one of the pre-prep questions, but I'm
Mhm.
gonna bring you to today, to the
Yep.
current day. Obviously the Lions are having a difficult season so far.
Mhm.
We've had many a show, we've had many a debate on the players.
Yep.
Who's your favourite player in the current Millwall squad?
I think you could answer this one for me, Stephen. It's Danny McNamara, mate, by a country mile. He's my favourite Millwall player in this squad. Not because of his talent, and I'll be first to say that. But we obviously, a lot of people give me stick for it, and the boys get you all give me stick for it. But I love Danny McNamara. I think, he's probably the modern day Alan Dunn in that sense of purpose. He's a right back, plays the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
position as Dunny did, and like I just think we should support people that are like from they're Millwall fans, play for the club, and okay, I get it. There's probably better players in that position at the moment. Norton Cuffy obviously held down the shirt, and now Ryan Leonard. But I think Danny's just a top person. Firstly, Millwall fan, and he got a bit of bad stick a couple of years ago for the contract situation. But he's a player that I look at where I go, if I was playing for this club, I'd play that way. And for that reason, Danny Mack's my favourite Millwall player in this current time. And it's hard pickings at the moment because a lot of players, I'll be honest, you can't really relate to a lot of the players in our squad. There's obviously good individual talents in there, Fleming, Denore, and stuff like that. But to me, like on a Saturday, if I turn up to the game and I see Danny Mack playing, I know he's going to give his all. Okay, it's not maybe the best technically wise, but yeah, Danny Mack's my answer. And you knew that was coming, surely, right?
I knew that was coming, and just to clarify, for the benefit, if Danny McNamara does watch the show, that we don't give him that much stick that you're his favourite player, and I'm pretty sure, without throwing you under the bus, that I'm pretty sure that you're after a shirt of Danny
Oh,
McNamara's as well.
I'll
If I'm,
try not to mention it, but yes. I was, I've been known to run into Danny a couple of times. Firstly, whilst I'm pissed, which is not always a clever move. So, player of the year that comes to mind. A couple of times after the games when we've been having a drink or whatever and stuff, and he's leaving the ground. I'm promised a shirt by you, Danny. And seeing as you brought it up, Danny, I want my shirt.
So yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
yeah, Danny McNamara, if you are listening or you do watch it, or any of Danny's family, can we please get a shirt to Omar? It's the one thing he needs. And the chances are we'll be at the end of season awards this year. So
Yeah.
perfect opportunity to get that
It'd have
to get
right a
that
place next to
sorted.
Jimmy Abdou, David Forde, and Danny McNamara. I think that's fair. 3 shirts on the wall there. So yeah,
Uh,
I want the shirt.
we're gonna have to clip that now because and send it to him. David Ford and Jimmy Abdi, your favourite players, and Danny all up on the wall. That's high praise. But I think what's interesting there though, and I've never really thought about it. What you said there is spot on. He is like the modern day Alan Dunn,
Yeah.
and someone who would run through brick walls for the club, but probably isn't as appreciated as much as others. But I can understand, and you're right when you say sometimes in all Millwall teams, there's players you can identify to. Unfortunately, we've kind of lost that a little bit this season, but there are
Hmm.
still players that fall into that category. Best away day following Millwall. As I said earlier, and our listeners, I'm sure they'll know that Omar does do quite a lot of the away games, been to a lot of places up and down the country. So there's probably quite a lot of different answers you could give to this. So again, I will give you an honourable mention if you need to. You said
Yeah.
Bury is your most memorable match, so I'm going
Yeah.
to ban that as a
Yeah.
best away day. Go.
Yeah. Um, I'm gonna go Leeds away 4-3 win. Purely because of that result. Firstly, listen. At the time, we had to go. I've been these countless times before that where you have to get on the coach, get to the service station, get off, exchange a voucher. You're getting filmed with police cameras and stuff to get your ticket, treated like animals, whatever. But that's a whole topic for another day. This was the first one without restrictions. Neil Harrison, the manager, going out to Ellen Road, in the championship against them, just been promoted that season. It had everything, didn't it? Let's be honest. We won 4-3. We was 2-0 up. They went down to 10 men. They somehow managed to have 3 top of 10 men. We've had a good day out in Leeds. It was my birthday weekend as well. And we
Oh,
managed to turn it around and win the 90th minute to win 4-3. So it is my best away day. It's like you rolled it all into one. It's in January. It's your birthday weekend. We went out afterwards, had a fucking brilliant night out back in London afterwards. Like, that's everything you really want, really. And other away days that stick in the memory. I mean, oddly enough, Tottenham away at White Hart Lane when we lost 6-0. Okay, we lost 6-0, but it's a cup quarter final. It was their last season at White Hart Lane too.
mm,
Managed to see Mill play there and stuff like that. Like there's games like that do kind of stick in the memory, obviously. But stuff like obviously winning 4-3 at Ellen Road, it doesn't get a lot better than that. To be honest, as a Mill supporter, it's fair to say.
no. I mean, I think as well that we hadn't won away that season, had we, up until that point either. So
No,
it just everything aligned that day for us.
I
On
had
the
gone to every single game that season as well, up to that point as well. So I've seen us lose every single game that season away from home or whatever we did, and to win that 4-3, brilliant.
Unbelievable. On the subject of the Spurs game, I don't
Yep.
know. I was there as well that day, and I don't know if you what you thought of this, but as they come out, as the players come out, and you had obviously the Spurs fans, and they were singing. I never forget that moment that Harris sort of looked over to us, clapped, and the roar from us. And even then, the game didn't go
Yeah,
how we wanted it to. But at 6-0, I mean, I don't know about you, but we were still there and
yeah.
sort of cheering the team on and whatnot. And those kind of moments you just don't forget. Even in defeat, it was just a day where you could say it was proud to be a Millwall fan there that day.
Definitely, mate. And I think there's one other honourable mention actually that just sprung to memory that I should have probably said. But with White Hart Lane, obviously, you're right. Like that senior side at a Premier League stadium, we dream of that one day. We want it to all happen for one season. Only one season is what we want.
Hmm.
And hopefully we get that one day. But one other mention actually, we beat Palace away 1-0 in 2010. We just got promoted in the playoffs, and Theo Robson scored the winner. We win
Yep.
1-0. We had the whole away end along the far side of the pitch, the Arthur Waite stand, or whatever it's called. And I reckon, I think we got allocated 4,000 or 5,000 tickets. I reckon there was about 8,000 Millwall fans that day in that way, and I shit you
Yeah.
not, it was literally like it was a bit like Spurs, which is what kind of made me think of it because
Mm.
Spurs was you was all kind of standing on each other. At Palace away, Phil Robinson scores, we win 1-0. We win that all yellow kit that we had that year. And it was just like it was such a good day, like because we hadn't played Palace for a good few years before that because we're stuck in League One, um, and winning that game 1-0, Robson scores the winner, and I honestly that whole away end's full. And sometimes I still go on YouTube now to watch them videos that day because that away game was sticks in the memory as well for sure.
Absolutely. And speaking of Palace, this might lead
Hmm.
us on. This might lead us on nicely. So I'm going to sort of put two questions here together. I'm going to ask you the most disliked, if that's the right way of wording it, opponent, but
Hmm.
also the top three. So three rivals that, in your mind, your biggest rivals, not necessarily what would be the traditional ones.
Okay, biggest rival's got to be West Ham. Um, yeah, West Ham for every single reason that we all know about for the history of that. And then I'll throw in Palace because they are a big. I think we obviously had big games against them, and like especially my early years going to the games and stuff like that. We always seem to have ding dong of games and stuff. And Ben Watson always seems to fucking score against us and all them sort of stuff that stick in the memory. Ben Watson's from Bermondsey, from a Millwall family, but always seems to score the winner against us in the 90th minute for Palace. So I don't know how he did it. He always did. And obviously, like I said about that game in 2010, Palace are definitely one of our rivals. And then the third one that I'll throw into there. I'm gonna say Leeds. I could have gone Charlton. I could have gone all the local routes, but I think even the weekend just gone playing Leeds. You know, we've recorded it after the Leeds game where we've lost 2-0. But I think that's like Leeds. Obviously, we've born the rivalry out of the playoffs. Jimmy Abdou scoring that goal at Ellen Road, and we always had that edge in them games. The crowd are always up for it. They won't admit to it, but they always look forward to playing us. We always look
Mm,
forward to playing them. It's one of
mm,
those rivalries that's not spoken about, but is appreciated. I feel like, and we'll both refuse to acknowledge it. But like start the season and knowing we're going to Leeds away, I was checking straight away when's Leeds away, and I think
mm.
that has some value to that really. So there's my three: West Ham being the biggest, Palace and Leeds also completing the three.
And in terms of disliked opponents, this is one that it might be for any reason really, but would you class one of those three as your most disliked, or would you look elsewhere for that?
Okay. Good question. I probably could look elsewhere. I could throw an argument in for Scunthorpe for 2009. Um, but I'll probably say Barnsley. It's a shithole of a place to go, Barnsley. It is pure shithole. Disliked opponent. I'm going to pick out Adam Habel from that squad when they beat us. I
Yeah.
fucking hate Adam Habel. I've never liked playing against him. He's a good winger, to be fair to him. He always seems to be up for it against us. And I mentioned Lee Hughes earlier. Marlon King's another one that played for various clubs, always done well against us, and all that. The list could go on. But Barnsley and Adam Habel in particular, just disliked him. Obviously, losing the playoffs, but the manner how it happened, the goals he scored fucking brilliant goal, didn't he? Where he cuts in from 30 yards and sticks it top corner.
Mm.
But yeah, obviously the three rivals I mentioned, obviously I dislike, but I'll add in Barnsley and Adam Hamill for that.
There's certain clubs, isn't there? And I don't know about you, but whenever it comes up to a fixture against them, and you just think, oh, they always beat us. Barnsley was one for a long, long time that
Mhm.
every time you'd come up against them, you just knew what was coming. You knew it was going to be a defeat. So I always think dislike for me, as I said, my answers were always like, as a kid growing up, knowing that the other team were just going to beat you because they
Mhm.
always did, not necessarily the teams that you didn't like. We again something that we've spoke about a lot on this show together and separately and again at games and whatnot is the fact that we're a club like no other. We're
Mhm.
not we don't sort of follow the same rules of normal football clubs and other football clubs. We are unique. But on that, is there anything, if at all, if you could, that you would change about Millwall Football Club?
Ooh. Um, I think modern days, in more like recent years, last couple of years, I probably would change. I don't know. I think I'd probably change a few things about. I wish the club would do more for the fans. That's one thing I would say. To go into depth with that one, I feel like there's some incentives they could probably do more for the fans to appreciate the people that go home and away. There's only what 600-700 people that go every single game home and away, or maybe not even that,
Mm,
300-400 and stuff. But I feel like the club could do more to look after them sort of fans. But on a more trivial thing, I'd just serve better beer at the ground. There you go. That's one thing I wish they could change at Millwall. It shows you my thing. I mean, look, I'm proud of being a Millwall fan. I love everything about being a Millwall supporter. And I preached that, we should be 4-4-2, two wingers, two strikers, have a go and play against sides, play with our chests out, have players in there that come from the club, come from the area, which is why I take a liking to players like Danny and McNamara. I think we need players in that side that understand what it's meant to be to play for Millwall. And for that, like, I wouldn't want to change anything in that side of things. Neil Harris in charge. He's a Millwall man, gets the club, gets the side, gets the fans. And there's so much elements of that. But yeah, there's not a lot I would really change. Maybe more back in, I said, for the fans that go home and away everywhere, because it's not easy doing that. It's a lot of money as well. But yeah, I wish they could serve Stella in the stadium. There you go. There's my one
So,
contribution.
again, if anyone from the club is watching, if we could sort out some Stella in the ground,
It'd make my
your
day.
profits would go through the roof. To be fair, we'd have a massive summer transfer
Not a big
key to
ask.
spend.
I'd be there from opening. I'd be there at midday if I had to be for a free kick off, no problem. And a midweek game.
Couple of little quirky questions to sort of finish up on this. Millwall fans are not necessarily known for their for the shirts, buying and wearing them. We're a club that tend to go in your own clothes as such, and they're kind of not wearing the kit around. But I know for a fact that you've obviously got a couple of shirts and bits and pieces. What would you say is your all-time favourite Millwall shirt?
Yeah, tricky one. It comes down to two for me. Either the FA Cup final 2004 shirt, nostalgia, that moment, obviously
Mm-hmm.
being a kid at the time as well. That really does, obviously with the Ryman sponsor on there, of all sponsors, obviously it's got to be the owners, retail business as well. But I'm gonna go for the Giorgio white top. I think that's one of my favourite ones. I think it was my first top I had as well. So obviously it's a bit of sentiment there for me. But the Giorgio white top that we had, 2001, I want to say that's probably my favourite all-time shirt for Millwall.
Again, a little bit of a curveball question for you here on kit. So you would have obviously grown up and going to games similar to me, and we always had it was blue and white. That was just the way that it went. You had the odd yellow and the odd green and bits and pieces. Are you a fan of nowadays that we seem to have some very leery kits? We've got the oranges, we've got the pinks, we've had the electric blue. Are you a fan of that as a Millwall fan, or would you rather go back to really keep it the old school? I know there's money in third
Yeah.
kits and things, but what are your thoughts on that?
It's not really something I used to look forward to kits when you're younger, like you say, and I'm not really a shirt collector or anything per se. So it doesn't really overly bother me, but I think we should keep just a standard blue home top, white away top, and then have an orange fur kit. And it doesn't have to get too deviant from that afterwards. It doesn't have to change too much. One away top actually that I'm thinking about that sticks in the memory, actually, away kit. The year we had Jackett first in charge, we had Opedo as a sponsor. We had an away kit which was yellow shirt, blue shorts, blue socks, and it was literally the Brazil kit. Like, and it's like I was like that sticks in the memory actually as oddly as a kit that I actually liked. It was different to obviously the blue and white kind of concept, whatever. But that kit, I think actually with the whole setup, when I think about it, you got players like Ali Fusini playing in this and Ahmet Berkovic, right? And I'm telling you now, there was times when we played at Brazil that season. We
Just
didn't,
on
but
that, without stealing your thunder, if anyone would like to go back and listen to my "Who Are You," I have an interesting story about that shirt and that
do
kit
you?
from that. See, I do, yes. So
Okay.
go back and listen to mine, and
Yeah.
because I do not want to steal your thunder here, Omar. And obviously, finally, last question out of the list that we've got here. You said that you wasn't much of a shirt collector, but I know that you do have again quite a few, and obviously going to games and programs and tickets and things.
Mhm.
What would you say is probably the best piece of Millwall memorabilia that you owned?
I actually was prepared for this one because it is my key ring my dad gave me for the last game at the Den. There you go. That is my favourite bit of memorabilia that I've got. So it's Mill Bristol Rovers at the old Den. I don't know how clear it's showing on the screen, but it's basically the stub of a ticket in gold. This is my favourite bit of memorabilia I've got. I've got player shirts, which I'm really grateful for. Having my dad work at the obviously across the road and had its relations and its benefits. He bungs the kit man a bacon sarnie. He gives them back a top at the end of the season. I'm not complaining. It made my day. I never said no. But obviously, a couple shirts I've got. I love Jimmy Abdou's one, Davis Forde's one, and bits and bobs like that. But this keyring, I don't know why. I've not seen many people have this keyring either. And I don't know where it came from. My dad tells me a story of getting it off someone that come into the chip shop we used to work in Peckham, and he said he wanted some food. He was apparently supposedly a questionable character, but dad said, "Give me your keyring and I'll give you fish and chips." And then that's how he got this keyring. And it's come descendant to me. So if anyone's got this keyring, let me know where they come from, because I want to know the true story. But but yeah, that's my favourite bit of memorabilia for being for Millwall I've got.
So, guys, if you are watching this and you have one, or you know the story of it, please comment, get involved, contact us, because we need to know.
Yeah,
Also,
I've never seen the club sell them. Have you seen the club ever sell them? I've never seen it be sold.
no, and it's something that I'm interested now to ask my dad and maybe other people to see anyone, like, obviously going to games at the Den and the same people are there. If anybody's got one, because I don't recall seeing many of them, so
Was it
there's got to be a
handmade by
story.
someone, or someone decided to make them one day and do a little run of them? Was it even a club official thing? These questions I need to know. So it's the stub. It's a gold ticket. It's got the price of £8. Mill versus Bristol Rovers at the Old Den. I've actually got the original stub in a frame still. My dad he gave me the actual ticket, good in condition, and I put it in a frame when I was younger. That's quite a nice memorabilia. I've also got the stub from '99 windscreen final in the frame.
Yep.
And I've also got, what have I got? Can't remember. There's one more. I've also got a match one shirt from Malcolm Allen, which is the oldest bit of kit I've got. Malcolm Allen, the Fairview top. So yeah, I've got different bits and bobs, but that keyring for some reason it just holds some sentiment and value for me. So I like that one.
I think the thing with that is as well, because lots of people will say a shirt, a signed ball, this, that, and the other, but that's quite a really personal
Yeah,
thing that obviously was given to you by your dad, and
exactly.
you'll keep that for a long time. So, well, that's all the questions, guys. As I say, we wouldn't be here without Omar, and obviously Mickey. We can't forget him as well. I'm sure you've all been dying to hear Omar's story. It's been great to be able to do this, because, as I say, I'm part of this podcast because of obviously you and Mickey. We do this because we enjoy and we love our football club. So, Omar, thank you very much for your time and providing the platform, shall we say?
No problem, mate. I mean, yeah, it's obviously a 4-year journey to get to this point where I'm doing questions on my own show. But no, look, I love it, and it's not my show; it's our show, and I enjoy doing it. And it was a lockdown hobby that turned into something we kept doing, and I wouldn't change it, because obviously it's led me to meet people like yourselves, Ben, Dan, Joe, Chris, everyone that helps out and does the show, and obviously Mickey. Can't forget to mention him, but yeah, that ball cunt. But yeah, aside from that, yeah.
We don't edit any of these, but Mickey was absolutely editing that part out before it goes live. But listen, guys, if Omar is willing to sit in front of the camera and do the questions on his own show, I'm sure there's plenty of you out there that would really, really love to get involved. So please drop us a message. Any of us, if you don't want me to interview, if you want Omar to do it, if you want Mickey to do it, whoever, get in contact. We've obviously got our Friday night live, Sunday night live, chat with chaps, all of that really good stuff. So if you can give us a like, subscribe, follow us, comment all over social media, it's very much appreciated. As I say, speaking from my behalf and Omar and everybody else, we appreciate all the support that we get, and we would love to hear from more Millwall fans and get you in front of the camera like Omar. But that's been That Millwall Podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.